In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the merciful. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to our course Applied Linguistics. And our today's topic is language teaching method. It's a part 2 of language teaching method, and we already have discussed some few language teaching methods in our previous lecture. And if you remember, we have discussed about GT method, grammar translation method, and direct method, audiolingual method, and communicative language teaching method. And in different four methods we have discussed about the different approaches presented by those different linguists. According to those methods, if a single method focuses on reading and writing, the other method focuses on listening and speaking, and in another method which pays more attention on the what we can say communication, communicative purposes are underlined by some methods. So different methods have different approaches, and different methods have different characteristics. We cannot say that this is the ideal method to teach language or to teach foreign language, second language, and we cannot say this is very bad method. We cannot apply this method in our educational context. However, everything has its merits and demerits. So in this context we are discussing different methods, different language teaching methods. So today's topic, we will discuss another method, but will be that it will be based on natural approach or natural method, we can say. And after that, the last one will be eclectic approach. Eclectic approach means we will combine, and we will use some miscellaneous or different methods, and what we can say the mixture of different methods. We can combine those methods according to the situation, according to the level of the students, according to the what we can say need of the learners. So in this way we will have a last method that we will discuss. It will be eclectic approach, means mixture of different methods according to the situation and need of the learners. So today we will discuss natural approach and eclectic approach. So what is natural approach and what is eclectic approach? We will discuss one by one. Number one, natural approach. Who presented this natural approach? It was said that Tracy Terrell, who was a Spanish teacher in California, he presented a new philosophy of language teaching, which he called the natural approach. As this name indicates, language will be learned like mother tongue, like acquisition of mother tongue, or language will be learned in natural setting. So the natural approach grew out of Terrell's experiences teaching Spanish classes. Since that time, Terrell and others have experimented with implementing the natural approach in elementary to advanced level classes with several other languages. Apart from Spanish, they have used this approach, and they did experiment on other languages. Maybe it could be English, or it could be French, or it could be some other languages as they were familiar to other languages. So they use this approach to teach different other languages. At that time, he has joined the forces with the Stephen Krashen, and Stephen Krashen, an applied linguist at the University of Southern California, in elaborating a theoretical rationale for the natural approach. So they combined their philosophies, so they cooperated and they collaborated their work in drawing on Krashen's influential theory of second language acquisition, because he was also interested in second language acquisition. So they both joined their theories, their conceptual framework, and they presented a theory of natural approach. So Krishnan and Terrell's combined statement of the principles and the practices of natural approach appeared in their book The Natural Approach, and it was published in 1983. Krishnan and Terrell developed the natural approach in the early 80s based on Christian's theories about second language acquisition, as we have already discussed. This acquisition focused approach emphasized the communicative competency progressing through three stages. So these are the three main basic components of this natural approach. So number one is there oral comprehension. Number two is early speech production. And number three is speech activities. So the basic focus will be on oral communication or oral comprehension and communication or communicative purpose or early speech productions. First, learner will be provided with the input and extensive input material, and in the start he or she will not be forced to say something, but with the passage of time, when he or she will be able to get enough input material and that he or she is able to produce something, then he was asked to say something. So there is no pressure in the start on the learners. They are gaining information, they are going to do practices in the start. So and after that, when learners feel themselves that now they are ready to say something, now they are ready to speak something, or in foreign language, second language, what the target language is involved over there, so then they are asked to say something, to do to utterance or to give utterance about those target language. Then speech activities are arranged in this way that they can do more and more practice. So all fostering natural language acquisition, much as a child would learn his or her native language. So child doesn't feel in a indulge in an alien land or in alien perspectives. Rather, he feels in a natural setting, or like his native language, he learns the second language. According to this approach, natural approach, the teacher, it's compulsory for the teacher to speak in only target language. He's teaching Spanish, he's teaching German, he's teaching Greek language, English, or French, or any other language. The teacher is bound to speak just the target language, and it has great impact on the learners. In Urdu, there is a proverb, जग में जो कुछ होगा ग्लासों में वही कुछ आएगा. So what a teacher is doing in the class, what the teacher is presenting in the class, in what way he or she is giving his information, it all has a greater impact on the learners' personalities, or even in the learners' knowledge, and in what way they will act. It has a great impact on the learners actions of the teacher, or knowledge of the teacher, or way of talking, way of behaving with the teacher. So it all has great impact to the teacher. If we want that our learner must be proficient enough in the target language, then there is compulsory, then there is mandatory that teacher must use that language. And in private school systems, uh, you also can observe this thing. The basic approach of the teacher is over there that they use target language, whereas in public schools, or where English is not focused and the teacher is delivering the teacher is delivering his or her lecture in mother tongue or L1, or ignoring the target language, then the challenges are more for the learners as compared to private sectors, or as compared to the learners of private sectors. So what is our motive, what is our purpose, what is our aim, what is our objective? We have to start gaining that purpose, and we have to start planning to gain that purpose in the early of the semester or in the early of the what we can say session. And from the very first day, you can say start with the very first day. What we want to achieve, we have to keep in our mind that it will everyday practice of the teacher will have effect on the learners. So student may use either the language being taught or their first language. So the teacher is compulsory, sorry, it's compulsory for the teacher to use the target language, but students have options because in the start they don't know how to speak, they don't know sentence structure, they don't have enough vocabulary. So in this way they are unable to speak in a target language. So students have option because there is no burden or there is no pressure on the students at by hook and crook they have to speak English, or there is a punishment or there is a fine if they will not speak in the target language. As in our different systems, in our different system of public sorry private schools, in some schools there is a punishment, in some schools there is a fine, or they have to pay a fine if they will not use target language and they will use mother tongue. So it must be practiced. Learner must be you must use a target language, but not in this bad way, because punishment has also negative effect on the students. So errors in speech are not corrected, so because they are what we can say threat-free environment, they are in the threat-free environment, because when we want to correct the mistakes or errors, there is some sort of hesitation, reluctance is involved over there. If we want to stop someone in this way by correcting his or her mistake, the learning process will be more slower. So in this approach, errors are not corrected. Learners are what we can say they have freedom to use the language, but ignoring them their errors. However, homework may include grammar exercises that will be corrected. So in written work, if they will do written work, there is some sort of corrections by the teacher. So goals for the class emphasizes the students being able to use the language to talk about ideas, perform tasks, and solve problems, but not at the very early stage. When they are able to speak, they are able to do exercises or to talk about the things, then they are involved in those those practices. This approach aims to fulfill the requirements for learning acquisition and does a great job in doing it. The essence of language is meaning, right? Vocabulary, not grammar, is the heart of language. So there must be communication in what way they are saying something. Maybe their structure is wrong. Grammatically, they are not saying the accurate sentence. But if meanings are clear, let them go. Then they must have they must have sufficient vocabulary, because you know that what is the cause of our reluctancy or hesitation, because we don't have proper words to use them at the proper time in our sentences, in our speaking, in our talking. So this is the main hindrance: lack of vocabulary, lack of accurate, or lack of sufficient vocabulary is also a main hindrance in our speaking. So here vocabulary is more focused. Different activities are performed. In this way, learner can learn more and more words. It emphasizes comprehensible input, means when meaning is emphasized, the essence of language is meaning. So comprehension or comprehensible input, distinguishing between acquisition, right? A natural subconscious process and learning a conscious process. So this is the what we can say, this is the main agenda of this natural approach. They say, according to the linguists of according to the proponent of the natural approach, they say that the language acquisition and language learning, these are the two different things. Language acquisition is performed in natural settings, while we are learning mother tongue, a child is learning a mother tongue. So there is no compulsion, there is no threat, there is no forcement, or what we can say, the child, he or she has freedom, full freedom to use the language according to the need, according to the particular context. So he or she is involved in the learning process, but not by forcement. He or she is willingly learning the language. So, like L1 is learned, mother tongue is learned, and learning of L1 is called acquisition, not learning. So, learning a second language, it's a different thing. So, according to this natural approach, second language also must be acquired like mother tongue. So, how a child can acquire a second language or foreign language and the language that is different from his or her mother tongue? So, until he or she is indulged in the natural process, right? So, the focus on meaning, not form, structure. Meaning, there must be communication, there must be what we can say, interaction with the words. And when the interaction with the words, with the meaning is clear, don't worry about the structure and grammar. Leave all these things for a while aside. So these methods do not force early production in the second language, but allow students to produce when they are ready, recognizing that improvement comes from supplying communicative and comprehensible input, not from forcing and correcting production. Right? It's very easy to understand this, all these things, as we have already discussed. When learners are ready, when learners have sufficient knowledge, sufficient practice, they have done sufficient practice, so then they are asked to say something, to utter something, and to involve speaking activities or talking activities. So the syllabus for the natural approach is communicative syllabus, right? In which they can do more and more communication, or in which they can do more and more communicative activities. Topics derived from learner needs. So, what sort of learner needs is that they are according to those needs and want of the learners, they are given some topics. Types of learning techniques and activities. Comprehensible input is presented in the target language using techniques such as mime and gestures. So, miming or mimicry, or what we can say, imitation, and in this way they use the body language, and group techniques are employed. Students are divided into different groups, and they are asked to do practice in group or in pair form or in group form, so that they can do more and more practice with their interest. So what is the learner role? As we have discussed already, that the main emphasis on meaning and vocabulary. So they should not try and learn a language in the usual sense, but should try and lose themselves in activities involving meaningful communication. So this is the learner role, or meaningful vocabulary is also main facet of this natural approach. So what is the teacher role? Teacher should provide comprehensible input, more and more material, in the sense that they can do exercises, they can do practices of comprehension or understanding the meaning. The teacher is the primary source of comprehensible input, must create positive low anxiety climate. The main focus is threat free environment, or what we can say, low effective filter, in which they are not what we can say, they are not in the situation that they are scaring, and they are scaring then from the environment of the class, or they are very fearful by the behavior of the teacher. And if the environment is very positive, especially in the learning process, environment is pleasant and cool environment, and there is no threat. Learners are better to learn that language, and very responses will be very quick, and the process of learning will be very faster. So I can remember when I was doing a speaking course, yeah, from a nearby college, and the instructor was there. What was his strategy? That from the very first day, and he asked the learner, or what we were students over there in his class. In our class, I think we have around 15 to 20 students. And what was the strategy of the teacher in that class? From the very first day, he asked the learner to stand on the dais, to stand before the class, and he or she is given a topic, and he or she has to start speaking about that topic. How was that possible? When we join the class, although practice makes a man perfect, although it's right, but when we talk about speaking skill, it's totally different from other, what we can say, from other learning, right? From learning of other things. So maybe physically, if we have some problems, we will do more and more practice. We will be expert of that, we will be master of that particular activity. But speaking is different thing. Speaking speaking matters a lot, uh, because when we are in the situation where we don't know how to start even a single sentence, when we are in that position, how can a learner be able to say something or particular about a particular topic, or to say something on a, because there are a lot of factors involved in this way. When we why we have joined that course, speaking course, because we are not proficient enough in speaking, right? So when we are not proficient enough in speaking, how can we say something before the class? Because some students are feel hesitation, because they are shy, because they are not confident enough, because they don't have sufficient vocabulary. So a lot of things are involved over there. So in how is possible for the learner to say something about the topic on the very first day? So what was the strategy of the teacher? I think it was a totally wrong strategy of that teacher. So he must use the positive low anxiety climate. So what was the result of that strategy? The next day, students were disappeared, and every day we met new faces. But the next day, or if the next day that particular student is present, the next day he or she is appeared. So although we have the class of 15 to 20, but the regular students were over there 6 to 10, hardly 6 to 8, or 8 to 10, hardly that were attending that class on regular basis. So if the environment is anxiety free, stress free environment, threat free environment, the learning process could be possible in a more effective way. So here the main focus, and I like this approach very much, the natural approach. And so I think this is the appropriate practice by the teacher to make his or her learner more proficient in speaking, especially in speaking. So threat-free environment, so must create positive low anxiety climate, and must choose and orchestrate a rich mixture of classroom activities. Means students are involved in a lot of activities, they are doing it again and again, they are doing different activities. So supply comprehensible input in low anxiety situation, right? Or containing messages that students really want to hear, right? So rules of material, the word of relia. Relia means real life, related to real life things or objects. So word of Relia rather than textbooks. Visual aids are essential like schedules, brochures, advertisements, maps, books of level appropriate to the learners. Eclectic approach, the last one, right? This is the approach presented by Larison Freeman and Mello. Both have used the term principled eclecticism to describe a desirable, comprehensible, diverse approach to language teaching. So, what are the main things related to this approach? This is the desirable, appropriate, comprehensible, or diverse approach. Diverse approach means different approaches are combined in this single approach, or different methods are involved or combined in this single approach. So eclecticism involves the use of a variety of language learning activities, each of which may have very different characteristics and may be motivated by the different underlying assumptions. So the use eclecticism is due to the fact that there are strengths as well as weakness of single theory based methods. So reliance upon a single theory of teaching has been criticized because the use of a limited number of techniques can become mechanic. So as we have discussed in the start of our lecture that if a focus is given to a one particular method, one particular approach or theory, so maybe we are able to get one aspect of the language we make our learners to involve to get mastery over one aspect of the language, but also we are in the situation that the other aspects of the language may be ignored and they are not learners are not in a position to get mastery of all the aspects or what we can say many aspects of the language at a time. So eclectic approach is methodology that makes use of varied language learning approaches instead of confined to one approach, and it is a skill-based approach as the teacher can adopt a method or approach on the basis of the learner's age, knowledge, and aims and objectives of the lessons. So what is the objective of the lesson? What are the aims and what sort of a knowledge or learner age level is involved it based on all these things, all those factors. The collection of group of different methods and then using them for teaching something. In teaching English, different methods and approaches have been popular. Each method has some good points and a few drawbacks also. Naturally, any one method does not serve the purpose of teaching well for all times and in all types of teaching situations. Elizabeth and Rao. So, Larison, Freeman, and Mallow use the term eclectic approach to language teaching. It is a mixed process of structured communicative approaches in which what we can say if our today's objective to teach our class is the mastery over grammar, so today we will use the what we can say when we want to use the GT method and we are having the purpose in our mind being a teacher that we want to teach structure of the language or grammar of the language, we will use GT method in which some grammatical points are discussed and practiced. So if the purpose is communicative approaches, communication, so communicative approaches, communicative language teaching methods, or what we can say the direct method or audiolingual method or natural approach in which more and more communication is involved. So if the topic belongs to structures, teacher has to follow structure approach, and if the topic or concept belongs to speaking activity, he has to follow communicative approach. So when a teacher teaches grammar topic, say she or he can follow inductive or deductive, depends on the age or rural background of the students. When he deals the topic, phrases or idioms, he can choose bilingual. If students belong to rural background, it is reading topic, he can use reading and audiolingual method. So it is combination of traditional modern approaches, and it offers better opportunities to learn language skills. It gives good results without pressure on learner. So the use of eclecticism does not mean to mix up different approaches randomly. So it doesn't mean whatever we want to use, just combine the methods and use those method in our teaching class, teaching and learning of language. There must have some philosophical backgrounds and some systematic relation among different activities. So it must be on a logical basis. The combination or mixing the different approaches or methods, it must be on rational basis. It must be according to the context, according to the level, according to the need, according to the aims and objectives of our lesson plan. It must be, all those things must be in our mind. Usually it's recommended to mix structure approach with communicative use of language. And most of the time, but we say the mixing the structure approach and communicative approach means what we can say GD method or direct method or GD method, or what we can say natural approach or audiolingual method, or combine both or three methods. Principle Principles of eclectic method. What are those principles? We will discuss one by one. So it gives a chance to teachers select different teaching techniques in each period to reach ends of the lesson. It breaks monotony in one hand and ensure better understanding on the other hand. So monotony means mechanical way. In a mechanical way, when a teacher uses all of the time the same technique, same method, same approach, students get bored by this same and monotonous methodology. So it breaks monotony, it gives options, it gives choices, not only for the teacher but also for the students. So in this way, students are more interested and they are in the more better position to understand the things. Different kinds of audiovisual and teaching aids lead to better understanding. Right? It saves a lot of time in presenting language activities. Sorry, it saves a lot of time in presenting language activities. So advantages of eclectic approach: learners become attentive and responded. It offers multiple opportunities to students to develop their own skills. It enhances active participation because in our um, teaching exposure or in our language learning exposure, what is the practice is performing by the teacher is active agent in the class, and there is a one-man show. Teacher is presenting all of the things, he is performing all of the activities inside the class, and learners are passive, they are sitting silently because there is a very much focus on discipline. There must be discipline by the authority. It's criticized. It criticized by the authority if our teacher is unable to maintain the discipline problem in his or her class. So there must be discipline, whether students are learning something or no. This is not the concern of the authority. So there must be discipline. So when they are sitting idle or doing nothing, definitely there is a discipline. So it enhancing active participation. Again, if we apply this approach, eclectic approach, students will be more active as they will be indulged in different activities, they are doing something, so they are active participants in that way. It makes learning lively and enjoyable. When we it's a common thing and understandable point that when we do the things by our hands, or learners involved practically or kinesthetically, learning is more enjoying and lively, or is more interesting. So it breaks monotony. Monotony means same routine, and it gives different options and choices. And it promotes class control, and students have interest in class, and it allows class discussion also. So this approach of eclecticism has some drawbacks, some demerits, or some shortcomings. So what is number one? Number one is there, although theoretical eclecticism is presented and it has some sort of theoretical grounds, but it's suspicious on logical base, and it seems to us that there are something more, there's need to do more investigation on those areas. And practically is also it has some sort of but we can say it does not meet the criteria of efficiency, the practical examples or a practical practices which are used inside the classroom. So it doesn't meet the criteria of efficiency or what is required. It's unable to provide that. It is time consuming. It may not helpful to particular regional medium of language. So maybe it's more time consuming in that way. It is not useful to slow learners because it's active participants. If active participant of the learner is required, so how can slow learners will be able to use this technique? Because they need more time, they need more attention by the teacher. If the teacher does not have command over all methods, it approaches students confused and demotivated. So number one, the foremost thing that is required, the teacher must have special command over all methods and techniques and approaches. And if he doesn't know, and in our context, our teachers, I think, in my opinion, as our school teachers, they don't have command over all the different methods and approaches in teaching. So, as you also have observed, they sing throughout your school days or school life, you have observed that our teachers using the same methodology, same techniques, same approaches as they have started from the very beginning of their career. So there is a, if we talk about the change, our teachers doesn't like don't like that change, because change, when we talk about change, it means a lot of endeavor or effort is required. So we don't want to do effort, so we want to be in comfortable zone, and it's very easy, let the things to go in the same routine, in the same robotic and mechanical way, so it's easier. So that's why our teachers opposes to different techniques most of the time, to different approaches and techniques and methodologies, especially in public sectors. I'm not talking about the private sector. In my observation, according to my observation, I think private sector teaches, although some drawbacks over there are we can see in that system, but this is also admitted fact that teachers of private sector is doing more effort as compared to public sector. So this is the end of our today's lecture. Goodbye, take care.